Hello folks, welcome back to Reality Check with Arvind Swaminathan. Today we have a very serious topic, so please don't switch it off. It was a concerted attempt to take over India, and it was a three-pronged attack. Three, not one or two, but three-pronged. Most people have got the two, but the third one has slipped under their radar. None of the news channels have mentioned this, nor have they given even a hint. Now the first, of course, was the BBC documentary. This was the first, followed very closely by the Hindenburg Report. Now let's take them one by one. The third one I'll come to in a minute. First, the BBC documentary. First, they come out with this and they try and rake up 2002 Godhra, the riots. They fail to mention, for instance, who started it. It was started by a mob of Muslims who surrounded a train and torched it. When the fire was put out, mind you, before they torched it, they made sure nobody could get out. They torched it, and when the fire was finally put out, 59 charred bodies of car sevaks or volunteers who were returning home after doing a little volunteer work at the Ram Temple complex in Ayodhya. These are the people who were murdered, burnt alive. Well, there was a backlash. There was bound to be. That's what was intended in the first place. Why? Because around then they knew that Modi had to be stopped. Modi at that time was Chief Minister of Gujarat. Of course, the riot started. It was put down fairly quickly. BBC doesn't mention the fact that there were about 260 Hindus who lost their lives in that entire thing. Only Muslim losses. Therefore, anti-Muslim. Again, this is trying to put a big divide between Hindus and Muslims. I'm hoping they failed. I think they have. The High Court in Gujarat cleared the then Chief Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, of any wrongdoing, but they also said that Mr. Modi put those riots down very quickly. Under the UPA government, the Supreme Court of India took up the matter, investigated, and all the evidence showed that he was clean. And he put down that riot very quickly. Again in 2019, the opposition made a ruckus. The Supreme Court took up the matter a second time and again cleared it and commended him for putting down the riot so quickly and effectively. So what is the BBC on about? What exactly is the purpose behind this documentary to rake it up again? They don't do anything about all the riots that have taken place and the loss of life during Congress governments at the centre. For instance, I've got a list here, a whole lot of them. 1947, between 5 and 10,000 dead. There's another one, Ahmedabad, 1969, 512 dead. Jamshedpur, 1979, 125 dead. This is the CPI Marxist rule. Muradabad, 1980, Congress rule, 2,000 dead. No comment from BBC? 1983, Assam, 5,000 dead, Congress government. Nobody said a word? 1984 anti-Sikh riots. In Delhi alone, 2,733 dead. And it was orchestrated by Congress leaders. One is no longer with us, one is in prison, the other one is still roaming around free. Now, there are many others. 1992, Mumbai, 900 to 2,000, somewhere in that number, dead. But the BBC, and this is all Congress rule, but the BBC keeps very quiet about that. Why? Now all this misrule and misgovernment, why? Because the government at the time, the Congress government, made sure that the people, A, had no access to education, there were no roads, they couldn't even get out of villages, there was no connectivity, because obviously in those days there was no internet or anything, even telephone were a rarity. Now if people can't get out, they can't get educated, they can't even get to small towns, forget big towns or cities, what do you expect? Now here's an interesting little detail. 1960, the literacy rate was 28%. The Congress won 371 seats in Lok Sabha. 1980, it was 43%, literacy I mean. 163 seats in Parliament. Big difference. Now then, 2000, 64% literacy. Congress had 114 seats. 2020, literacy rate was 78%. The Congress had 52 seats in Parliament. Need I say any more? And certainly for the first 4 or 5 ministers for education were all Muslims. And therefore, all we came across was Islamic teachings. Nothing else. So much for the BBC. The other one was the Hindenburg Report. Now, who is this group or company? Is it a company? Is it a corporation? Or is it just a group of people sitting together and saying, yes, we will do this? No information on it. Apparently it was started by somebody who used to be a taxi driver. In 2017, this was started by somebody called Anderson. That's all we know. Who finances it? You try getting any information on their website, there isn't any. Or there wasn't for a long time. Now, if that alone isn't suspicious, recently they've come out and said, yes, they did short sell the Adani group. Now let me explain what this means. Now, you or I, we buy stocks and shares on the share market. We buy at a certain level. When the price goes up, we sell, and that is our profit. Now, Hindenburg works in a different way, apparently. What do? They take a group of companies or a very big company or a conglomerate where the share value is very high. They really go to work on it, all sorts of things about it, to make the shares tumble. Now they already have a group of investors with a lot of money who now buy these shares at a low rate. And before long they come up again and they make a huge profit, a huge killing. That is known as short selling, I suppose. Now it is these people who buy at low rates, who give them commissions, which is what they live on. The best part is this. This particular group is under investigation by the US Justice Department at the moment in the USA. But the fact that a lot of the people in India, especially the parliamentary people, especially those in the opposition, if it's a foreign report, it must be the gospel. It cannot be false. If it's Indian, oh no. You can't believe that. That slave mindset is still there. That is why these opposition guys are still in parliament. How they get there, don't ask. They don't have the sense to see through all this or understand. They just bothered with their seats. Now, why the Adani group? Stocks were at a very high level. Bring it down, which they did. Somebody buys. I hope people in this country did not do any panic selling. Because had they done that, these buyers would be having a whale of a time. because those stocks have started recovering. But, as I said, why the Adani Group? Because the Adani Group has a whole lot of companies which have invested in the core of Indian industry. They're invested in ports in Kerala and Gujarat, airports, Mumbai and one or two other places, mining, coal mining, not just in India but also in Australia, plus gas, power generation, both normal power and green power. The other thing they've done is, recently, which seems to have sparked all this off, they bought the Haifa port in Israel. Now this is a very strategic point. Why? Europe and the Mediterranean. Plus, if the Suez Canal is broken down or something happens to it, from Haifa to the Gulf of Aqaba, under Israeli protection, no Arab or Muslim country will touch those. From the Gulf of Aqaba into India. Right? Plus, there are railway routes. You get a railway route from Haifa to Aqaba or Eilat, everything is fine. Connectivity between Europe and the Gulf of Aqaba at Eilat. Plus, the Russian road and rail link all the way into Iran and down to their coast. Now, it clears a lot of options for India. So for India, it's very strategic, which the West doesn't seem to want or like. Plus, the Chinese are also trying to get in there. So it irks the Chinese. Now, we've also come across this disclosure that the BBC is being funded by Huawei, a Chinese multinational. However, we also know that the Chinese government uses Huawei and such multinationals to fund a whole lot of organizations in the West with this motto in mind: you eat my bread, you sing my song. They buy influence this way, plus they do down their competitors, like India. Now, is it just the Chinese government? Or does it have its roots in India? Remember 2008, the Congress Party of India signed an MOU with the Communist Party of China in Beijing in 2008, just before the Olympics. Who signed it? Rahul Gandhi. In the presence of his mother, Sonia Gandhi, and his sister Priyanka Gandhi Vadra, and brother-in-law Robert Vadra. They're all implicated. We don't know anything about what's in that MOU. Now he'd better put that and table that in Parliament very quickly. Otherwise, that entire family will be guilty of high treason. So, if India is given a real blow and rioting starts in India between Hindus and Muslims, the Chinese will be very happy. So will the Congress Party of India. Let's not forget that. Because there is that India connection of traitors. I call them traitors, no two ways about it. If you're dealing with the enemy, you can't be for the country you're living in. Why does the West not like this thought of India spreading its wings and becoming competitive all over the world? Obvious reasons. They don't want competition. That European and American mindset of white supremacy is still rampant. You can see that. However, the third part of this three-pronged attack, as I said, seems to have slipped under everybody's radar. What is that? What was Victoria Nuland doing in Delhi in the last week of January? You remember Victoria Nuland, Kiev, 2014, along with John McCain, orchestrating the overthrow of an elected president of the Ukraine who was leaning toward Russia, having him thrown out literally and replaced with a pro-American president. Now, with these two attacks, what was she doing in Delhi at the same time? Remember, she'd gone to Tamil Nadu a couple of months ago, quite possibly because to her, Tamil Nadu is thorium and thorium is Tamil Nadu. She was mortally frightened that the Ram Setu area would be called a national heritage site, which means no mining. Now she's in Delhi. I think they were hoping and believing the assault on Adani Group, the BBC documentary would create riots. Just right for her, with the CIA as in Kiev, to depose the Prime Minister Modi and make him look so horrible that the people in India will throw him out. So, people are not wrong when they say 2024 Lok Sabha or Parliament elections is the aim of all this. It's not far off. But there are also 8 or 9 elections to be held in India for different states. They would also have been affected. This was intended to be an absolute all-out attack on the BJP, Modi and India. Now the other thing is, the Adani Group, who was trying to buy up those shares at a low price? Because if it was a bunch of Americans, we know why. However, the secrecy behind all this suggests only one other thing: the New World Order. Now, whether you like it or not, the formula is the same every time. They tried it through Pfizer's during COVID-19. That failed because the government of India stood firm. They would not cow down to the conditions being imposed by Pfizer. Now we know, for instance, the US Supreme Court has ruled that the Pfizer vaccine is not a vaccine. It isn't even properly effective, nor properly tested. People dropped dead with heart attacks, youngsters, 25, 30-year-olds in the US. Old people, well, you know what happens. If youngsters go, how much of a chance do old people have? In the meantime, India developed her own vaccines, which they gave to the world, in many instances free of charge. Pfizer were going to make a big killing, trillions. They got nothing. They are mad at us. In fact, the whole of the European and American pharma industry is mad at us. And obviously, war has been declared between them and Indian pharma companies. And they're doing it in their own peculiar way. Industry doesn't like competition. They're frightened that with control of Haifa port, they will start competing seriously in shipping, as well as transportation. Now that they've moved into Australia, mining, that's only a first step. And mining is one of the core industries of the Rothschilds. From Chile to Baku, from South Africa and Australia right up to, Siberian areas, which of course they've quit thanks to this war in Ukraine. Now they're hopping mad with the Russians because they threw all the Rothschild banks out of Russia. They're trying hard to get back inside by first breaking Russia. I hope they don't succeed. Plus, they're now trying to take over India. All this desperately to save the American dollar. They do not want the US dollar to be made to go back to the gold standard. Because at the moment, they just issue pieces of little paper and buy anything and whatever they want. If it goes back to the gold standard, those dollars are exchangeable and payable in gold, which the Federal Reserve doesn't have in the US, of course. So, what will they use? Without any gold in the bank, the US dollar would collapse. Now you understand the whole picture. The attack via the BBC documentary, if you can call it that. I call it something else, but we can't go into that here. It might be called unparliamentary. The Hindenburg Report, which is a load of codswallop. Victoria Nuland's appearance. And all these other things, especially the fact that the Indian rupee is being used as the trade currency in Southeast Asia and in a few other countries. The Federal Reserve and the Rothschilds and the New World Order are frightened to hell of BRICS. You know, Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. Because more countries are wanting to join BRICS as an alternative to the US dollar. Why? Because the Americans have shown they use that dollar to cow down other countries, to take them over and colonize them, and to bully them into submission. Or they just take away their wealth and use it for themselves and not give it back to the people whose money it is. They've done that against Russia. Which means they are a bunch of thieves, even today. Plus, paying everything in US dollars, what does it mean? It means going back to the 18th and 19th centuries. You know, colored beads to the natives for all the wealth they can get out of there. And the natives only get little colored beads, colored glass. That policy has been followed by the Americans and by the American bankers. When I say American bankers, I think you know what I mean, the Federal Reserve. To take over the whole world for nothing. Because those pieces of paper, what do they mean? Nothing. They are nothing. Just pieces of paper. Now you understand the whole picture. Well, I hope this is not something to be enjoyed, but to be thought over carefully, very carefully. Before you go in for anti-India policies and tactics and trying to create problems in India, do remember this. And I know you got idiots here who say Muslims are being targeted, Muslims are afraid. Who said so? If that was the case, why did 60 or 70 million Bangladeshis come into India? They're all Muslims. So, now Muslims burning a train full of volunteers who are Hindus, frighten Muslims? Huh? Wherever you get these riots, frighten Muslims? Jahangirpuri, frighten Muslims? All this thing, and Shaheen Bagh, Bangladeshis, frighten Muslims? They get away with almost murder here in this country. Why won't they come here? They pour in here and create problems for us because the rest of India remains unemployed. So bear that in mind before you make these silly statements. And if you hear of it, put it down straight away. It doesn't deserve to be put around. It should not be disseminated because it is totally wrong and a lie. Please stamp out lies. Try a little honesty and integrity just for a change. Thanks folks. Please, if you like this one, please circulate among your groups, your friends, your relatives. Ask them to send it further. Because this is something all of us should know about. We've got the whole world to fight against. And we better be one India. Thanks folks. Ciao. See you next time.